So let's say I want to get the value of pi. Well, I can do math.pi, and that gives me a value. Or if I want to know the square root of pi, I can say math.square root of math.pi. So sometimes it's handy to be able to refer to properties and methods of a class without actually having an object of that class first. So I could create a new math object. Well, math isn't really a constructor, but pretend for the sake of argument. And then once I have a math object, then I can get math.pi or math.square root. But I don't really need to have separate math objects. There's really only one math thing, and these values and methods are going to be the same no matter how many math objects I had. So it doesn't really make sense to create a new math object every time I want to get a value for pi or be able to call a square root method. So this is called a static property or a static method of a class rather than a property or method of an object. And you can get the same effect in JavaScript by setting a property directly on your class, your constructor, instead of on an object. So let's, for example, say I always want to be able to get the type for dog. So right now, if I said dog.type, I get undefined because I haven't defined a type on dog. The only way I can get the type of a dog is by creating a new dog object and then asking that dog object to tell me the type. But if I want to make this a static property, I can do that. And then if I reload, boom, it's there without me creating an object. Now I can do that because a constructor is a function, and in JavaScript, functions are objects. So here's how I look at a function as if it were an object. And I can see all the properties associated with that object. So I see the function has a name, it has a type, it has something called arguments, which we'll probably learn about next week. It's got a caller, and so on. This is also how I can see that functions have prototype property. So it's right here. So I can set a static property directly on the function. And we'll also learn that you'll notice that I'm saying dog.type equal dog before I actually define the function dog. But that's not the order that JavaScript actually evaluates them in. JavaScript does something called lifting, where it's going to define all of these functions first and then go back and do all the assignments. So even though I've written dog.type equal dog before function dog in my code, JavaScript will create the dog constructor function first, and then it will set the type of dog to be dog. So let's do the same thing with a method. Dog.create is going to be a function that returns a new dog object. So now I have a static method named create on my dog class that when run is going to create a new dog object and return it. So reload. Var rover is dog.create, and now rover is a dog. Now, the reason I might want to do that is I might want to have some logic here in terms of what type of dog to create. So for example, if I pass in type, I can switch on type, case, let's say Dalmatian, colon, return new Dalmatian. case mini Dalmatian, return new mini Dalmatian, case small dog, return new small dog. Otherwise, it'll just return a dog by default. So let's go ahead and reload. Now if I say dog.create, I get a dog. Dog.create Dalmatian, I get a Dalmatian. Dog.create small dog, I get a small dog. And dog.create mini Dalmatian. So what I've done is I've created a static method on the dog class which takes a type and returns an object of that type. And this is called a factory method. And we'll be seeing an example of that in the lab this week.